EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. I hope everybody had an amazing Father's Day weekend this past weekend. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Monday morning, brother?
Doing well. We're in the weeds of the dead period. So, thanks to everybody for tuning in, but plenty to talk about as we get ready for training camp, and better to be the reigning Super Bowl champions than not, is what I would say about the Philadelphia Eagles. So
yeah, no doubt about it, Johnny Mac. Yep.
And the NFL, as I said, the great players, they know they have to still do stuff when there's a dead period. You can take a week or two off, but tight end universities coming up later this month. Lane Johnson, offensive line masterminds, I believe, is early July. So guys will be working out with each other because you have to. You can't just shut it down for 5-6 weeks. Maybe take a week or two and recharge the batteries, but better be ready to go on July 23rd.
Yep, I think all the Eagles will be, so we'll be following all along. We got plenty of stuff, as John pointed out, to talk about before we get to that training camp. July 22nd, right, John, is when they report for training camp, I believe, and then 23rd they're on the field?
Yeah, that is the tentative schedule. The official schedule's not out, but yeah, you can be pretty comfortable. That's the report date, and first practice will be the 23rd, but and we'll know more about that. Generally, if it holds true, it'll be in the morning. So that's when we shift to doing a 2-hour show at night, at least during the days where they're practicing, because it's a little bit too early. But who knows? There's always changes, and we have to see when the schedule comes out.
Yeah, so it's a good thing to let the people know that now. I forgot we did that last year. There was what we do it like a couple of days a week normally, or 3 days a week, however many practices it calls for. But we'll shift the show around if need be, but we'll always give you guys 2 hours, which is our promise. John, here we are, middle of the off season now as we prep for training camp. The one thing I want to touch on before we move on is just the rookie contracts. I saw the article you wrote, and it's interesting, John, the way this is going. And there's nothing to be concerned about. There's one draft pick left for the Eagles to sign. It's Drew Makuba, our second-round draft pick, who was a safety, the last one. But there's a stalemate, John, in the NFL across all the second-rounders. And I think they're up to what? Pick 34 is fully guaranteed, and then anything after that, they're still fighting. How far do you think that will go? And then maybe just explain what I meant there for those who do not understand those second-round contracts.
Well, now when the new CBA took over and whatever it was, when the landscape changed, Sam Bradford was the last sort of bonus baby over the old contract, over the old CBA, when he had all these holdouts in the old days. For people that remember, with rookie players, it was a big issue at times for certain organizations. So they made it a point to sort of rework the entire system, try to reward the veteran players more than the rookie players who were unproven to a certain degree. Now, they still make significant money, obviously. But as you go year over year, completely fully guaranteed 4-year contracts are now, for those who don't know, are now the typical way of doing business in the first round. So first rounders get fully guaranteed contracts. I think a lot of people don't realize that, because it's always been a thing about, should football players get guaranteed contracts? The first round rookies get full 4-year guarantees. That has never seeped into the second round until this year. Jaden Higgins was the first to get it from Houston, the 34th overall pick. Once he got it, the 33rd overall pick, Carson Schlesinger from Cleveland, from UCLA, who went to Cleveland, he got a fully guaranteed deal. And now it's 35. Nick Emenwari from South Carolina, Seattle drafted him. He'll want it. And, that's the whole push and pull. When you talk about there's only 40 draft picks were unsigned. I haven't even checked over the weekend if anybody signed, but there were 40 as of Friday, and 30 of them are the second rounders from 35 on down to Andrew Makuba at 64. And that's why, because they're all waiting. It's a slotting system. How far down is it going to go? It's not going to go to Makuba, but
no. Maybe it maybe gets to 30, 38?
If that,
If that.
For whatever reason, people are pushing for it in the NFL both ways, obviously. And it's a big deal to go down as far as possible. And it'll eventually trickle down probably to 64, but not at this stage. So for Makuba, I mean, because it is a slotting system, and there is a little bit of give and take in the second round and the fourth round when it comes to different things and guarantees and offset money and things like that. There is a little bit more room for negotiation. So if you're Makuba at 64, you don't want to sign until you think about RJ Harvey's at 60, Trey Amos at 61, Shamar Turner at 62, Omar Norman Lott at 63. Till someone in that grouping signs and you kind of get the lay of the land, that's when Makuba's camp will act. But it's nothing to worry about.
No, I didn't say that. I'm just fascinated.
No, I know. I'm not saying. Yeah, there's a lot of people who still have that mentality because they grew up.
Right.
How is the rookie going to sign? Is this, is that? It's not an issue, but it is taking a little bit more time. I remember Landon Dickerson signed late, and Jody was worried about it. And I was like, don't worry about it. He'll be here. Yeah, but it's hard. It's hard for people that were around under the old system to understand the new system where it's really just sort of waiting for your slot more than anything else.
Just a little bit of semantics in there. But good stuff. We'll see when Makuba signs, and we'll see how it all shakes out in the second round. But all the other rookies are signed for the Birds, so just Drew Makuba to go, and I expect that will be done before training camp coming in. John, I want to talk to you about something before we get Jeff Kerr on today. I'm looking forward to talking to Jeff as always. But I've been thinking about these sophomore players, Johnny Mack, in this weekend. And boy, does this defense need the sophomore players to really have a good year. I know Quinyon Mitchell obviously had a great rookie year. Cooper DeJean had a great rookie year. I think Jalyx Hunt, I know he didn't statistically dominate, but I think he had a great rookie year based on what we expected when they drafted that player as a project player. And now you have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. sitting in as the starting linebacker for right now. Boy, Johnny Mack, that defense needs these sophomore players to have a good year. What do you expect from some of those guys as I say those names coming into year two? What comes to mind for you, Johnny Mack?
Well, I mean, I think Quinyon and Cooper at the top have already proven themselves to be good NFL players. Are they going to have the same types of seasons they had in year one? That's debatable, but they're going to be good players. Jalyx Hunt, a lot more is going to be counted on him. And I think he had a strong spring. I think he's going to be starting edge defender unless the Eagles bring somebody in from outside the organization. And I think he's going to be better than maybe a lot of people around the nationally perceive that he's going to be better here, because everybody's so hyped up. I don't know if he's going to live up to those expectations, but I think he's going to be fine. Will Shipley, I've said, for whatever reason, some people are down on him. He's going to be the backup running back. I don't have any question about that. The running back two, Trotters, you mentioned, probably your week one starting linebacker opposite Zach Bond. Depends who's going to play Mike, who's going to play Will. That's dependent on sort of Vic's feel, but in theory, Trotter would be better equipped for middle linebacker than weak side, but we'll see how that shakes out. But he's only starting for injury purposes, obviously. Down the road, it might be Jahad Campbell first, then Nakobe Dean. But, when those guys are back, obviously, they'll be inserted into the lineup. And then Anaya Smith, I would say, is fighting for his roster spot. Trevor Keegan, a lot of bodies there, probably fighting for a roster spot. Johnny Wilson, I think, is going to make the team because of what he offers as a blocker. And this is still a run-first offense. And obviously the last one, Dylan McMahon, is not here anymore. So, you know, some guys expected to take a step up, Hunt, Shipley, Trotter. Some guys in the same role, probably Johnny Wilson, very limited role. Smith and Keegan sort of got that 1-year dispensation card. Now they got to go earn a roster spot. And then, like I said, that Quinyon and Cooper are good players. Are they going to have the same types of year that it's going to be tough to live up to, especially in the case of Quinyon? Because remember, he's now the guy.
Yeah, right. Last year he did play. Yeah, I mean, that's a big jump.
Yeah. He's playing left corner, not right corner. That's a big difference, believe it or not. So,
how much
a lot more
corner struggle at that? Like, John, you know how people talk about offensive linemen where it's like really a big thing if an offensive lineman can play both sides. Not everybody can do it, and some struggle mightily. Is it the same at corner or a little bit of a lesser extent?
No, I think it's a much lesser extent. It's not about the side. It's about the responsibility, because most quarterbacks are right-handed, almost all of them, and they're right hand dominant, and that means they're going to go to that side of the field much more. That means the best receivers are on that side of the field much more. Just ultimately, the natural progression of a right-handed quarterback is going to be more on that side of the field. That's why you put your best corner on that side of the field. It's more to do with that. Generally, corners moving around doesn't bother many of them. More the issue with, if you think about guys that travel, and the Eagles have had some defensive coaches that don't like to travel corners, Vic being one of them. That's because of the impact it has on the others in the secondary from a communication standpoint. So if somebody like Slay can handle it, that's great, but I think people don't think about the layered effect. Well, if Slay's covering and moving wherever, that means somebody else is moving to where maybe they're less comfortable from a communication standpoint. So that's the bigger issue than playing left or right. Wide receivers or cornerbacks are the best athletes on the field. They're not shaken.
Yeah, it's not as set in stone either, like the movement. But I did want to ask that. What's your confidence level in Quinyon, John? I mean, I'm really confident in the guy. He had a great rookie year, but I do acknowledge that 1 year in the NFL isn't enough to make a career. You got to continue to do it, and he does have a lot bigger burden on his shoulders this year with no Darius Slay.
Yeah, I think he's a really good player, but I think it's one of those situations where he might be getting better as a player, and people won't understand that he's getting better as a player because he's given up a little bit more because he's getting targeted more because of the natural stuff that I talked about. And people are adjusting to what he did well last season. That factors into it as well. So I think he might get better as a player, but be perceived as not as good as his rookie season. One of those types of deals.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. And then you got Cooper. I'm excited to see where Cooper ends up. I feel like he's going to end up back in the slot, but who knows? I mean, what's your gut feeling on where Cooper DeJean ends up on this defense?
Yeah, I think he's still going to be in the slot for the majority. Obviously, he's going to be a 3-down player. So in the rare instances they are in base defense, which I hate using, but since everybody uses it, we'll use it. So when they have just two corners on the field, he'll be playing opposite Quinyon Mitchell on the outside. Mainly obviously a corner. I don't expect him to play safety because I think, McCoop is going to be good enough to where they get him on the field, or at least from their perspective. Same thing with Ringo. So I do expect him to stay in the slot for the majority of the time. But, if one of those two players has a bad camp, yeah, Big said, he'll play where he needs to play. So he's got confidence in him playing anywhere. But right now, after the spring, I think signs are pointing in a positive direction for both Kaylee Ringo and Drew Makuba, I would say.
Yeah, and maybe no bigger jump in responsibilities from year 1 to year 2 than that of Jalyx Hunt. When Jalyx Hunt got here last year, John, you had Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith, and then you had maybe Jalyx Hunt, and there might have been some other guys I'm leaving out who were here in camp last year that Jalyx jumped over. Now it's Nolan Smith and Jalyx Hunt. I mean, you got 3 edge rushers who were in front of Jalyx Hunt last year that are now officially off the team following the trade of Bryce Huff, obviously the departure of Josh Sweat, and the retirement of Brandon Graham. I mean, they're counting a lot on Jalyx Hunt to be a big player in year 2 for this defense.
Yeah, I mean, they have some insurance in Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche, so they do have some insurance. But I think, after seeing it in the spring, clearly they want Jalyx Hunt to be the guy, to be that second edge rusher opposite Nolan Smith, and then the other guys will be rotational players. But and you need a 4 or 5 man rotation on the edge, but. Yeah, they want Jalyx to be that guy. And I don't, I'm not comfortable with that, to be honest.
No?
No. I'm more comfortable with it, but I just think that is such an important position. The adage in the NFL now is either get the quarterback, meaning, get a top level quarterback, or if you don't have what top level quarterback, get to the quarterback. And you've seen that in Super Bowls. You've seen it with Tom Brady. You've seen it with Patrick Mahomes. Get to the quarterback if you don't have the big time quarterback. And that is, you can do it in different ways. Jalen Carter's a big part of it. Milton Williams last year. Hopefully Mora Jomo takes a step up. On and on, you can do it from the interior. But you generally need some impactful edge rushers. Again, it doesn't have to be TJ Watt, but you also don't want a bunch of 4, 5, 6 sack guys on the outside. You need a finisher, you need a closer, and hopefully that's Nolan Smith and Jalyx Hunt can be the complement to that. And like I said, I think he's got a big upside, but you're extrapolating basically 300 snaps into 700-800 and basically when that the thought process last year for most teams was probably like, all right, Jalyx Hunt is over there. We're not going to worry about him too much, especially when you got to worry about Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, Nolan Smith, the way he was playing. So, all that factors into it as well. It'd be nice to have a more proven situation at edge rusher, but again, not every team in the NFL has issues. The Eagles have less issues than every other NFL team.
Yeah, no doubt about
but
it.
This is one of the issues.
John, do you have a player comp for what you think Jalyx Hunt could become in the NFL?
Not really. I'm not a big comp guy.
I know you're not. I didn't want to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to think of like what his or at least where you're gauging what his upside could be. If you don't want to give a comp, that's fine. But maybe just speak a little bit about that.
Well, I think his upside is a double-digit sack guy. I think he's got that potential. How quickly he gets there is another question. Milton Williams just made himself $26 million annually. Look at how long it took him to develop till he turned it on. Like the assumption, like I think Quinyon's success early, Cooper's success early, kind of broke people, like to assume that, all right, well, they're good. Why can't so and so be good? They're kind of outliers. And that's why I think you're going to see some more hiccups for both of them this year.
Well, remember, John, we also had Devontae Smith and we also had Jalen Carter. We've had a lot of rookies performing in year one on this team in the last couple of years.
Well, they perform, but even if you look at Devontae, and Devontae was probably ill-suited to be a wide receiver one at the time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first year in the league, one, yeah.
I think he did a good job as a rookie. Even Jalen Carter, who I often say is, the most talented Eagle. He's not the best Eagle yet. He's on his way, but he's the most talented Eagle. And in his rookie season, he was, very good, but he only played whatever. I don't have it in front of me, but he spiked from like 500 snaps. Jeff will probably know, to 1,100 last year. Like he didn't. Right. That was one of the issues with Jalen Carter. He didn't play a ton of snaps and the conditioning and all that. And then he just took off in his second year. So even they were very effective for rookies. And I still think Jalen Carter should have been defensive rookie of the year. He was second. But, he wasn't the Jalen Carter from last year as a rookie. Not even close.
No.
So, there's that incremental improvement. Now, again, I think Quinyon Mitchell might get better in his second year, but I don't think it'll be framed as him being better. Same thing might happen with Cooper DeJean.
Right. I see what you're saying with that. Let's get the one super chat, and then we got the great Jeff Kerr joining us here on Birds 365. Looking forward to talking to Jeff Kerr. Suo Blaze, member for 9 months. Good morning, fellas. Suo, good morning, my friend. Good to see you in here. And Wolfie Wolf checks in. Wolfie Wolf, I like that name. $5. Thank you, Wolfie. He says, who will be the leader on the defense? Is there an emerging voice in the locker room? Also, I drew you guys a picture. Where do I email? Wolfie, if it's a cool picture, I'll take it. If it's a goofy picture, keep it out of the inbox. Zander at jakibmedia.com. Thank you, brother. John, your thoughts on his questions about the D there, the leader on the D, and is there an emerging voice in the locker room?
Well, there's two ways. So there's on field and off field. On field, the leader is Hurt, Nakobe Dean. And then the secondary sort of a step behind is Reed Blankenship. Those are the on-field leaders. That one of the issues without Nakobe is who's going to take over that role. Zach Baum did it at the end of last season. Vic's very comfortable with it, but I think they would like Zach to be on the weak side and somebody to handle the middle role because there's more responsibility. He can do more things if he's playing weak side linebacker. So that's to be determined. If Trotter wins the middle linebacker job, he's going to be a starter. But if he wins the middle linebacker job, he'll be the on-field leader. That's just the nature of it. But for Brandon Graham and Darius Slay, the leaders off the field, that's a bigger question mark. Again, Nakobe would be one of those guys, but he's not healthy. He's just the natural leader. I think Nolan Smith has a chance to be that type of guy, as an energy guy.
Yep.
I think Jordan Davis is sort of the leader on the defensive line. People look to him.
Do you think he's got to do more on the field for that off the field leadership to become even more effective, if that makes sense?
No, I don't think so. Because you look at Brandon late in his career, he wasn't playing like he was early in his career. He was
but he kind of earned it, right? Like it's one thing to earn it versus Jordan, hasn't ever proved really what Brandon did in the peak of his career.
Well, I think to the people there he has, and the people there already look to him. Like he's already the guy that people follow, which is crazy because he's so young, but their whole defense. That's part of the problem. They don't have a ton of veteran experience, but
yeah, no, they're young, man. Really young.
Yeah, he's already had that role with the defensive linemen. They kind of looked at Jordan Davis. So I would say that doesn't change with the interior guys I'm mainly speaking of, but because they're in a different room than the edge guys. But they do get together, obviously, at times and work, and Jordan's a big part of it. But yeah, I mean, Slay and BG, man, they were glue players, and you can't just replace 15-year veterans and whatever Slay's played over a decade. It takes 15 years. And there's not too many players that play 15 years with the same team. So
true, man.
You're taking a step back from that standpoint. Yes.
Yeah, good stuff. Wolfie, thank you for the super chat, brother. I look forward to seeing whatever picture this is that's coming to my email. Thank you, brother. We appreciate it. Let's go to our main man, Jeff Kerr, set to join us here on Birds 365. You can follow him at Jeff Kerr, CBS, and read all his work at cbssports.com. The great Jeff Kerr. How you doing this Monday morning, brother? Good to see you.
I heard the sky was falling with the Phillies season. I guess it's back on track.
Back on? Yeah. I thought it was over. I can't keep up with it, Jeff.
We were having a lot of us writers were laughing in the press box yesterday about a Matt Gelb story that came out about he wrote a feature on Zach Wheeler, right? It was an awesome piece, by the way. If you're a Phillies fan, I suggest you read it. But, he was talking about Wheeler retiring in 2027 after the 2027 season when this contract ends, which Zach Wheeler has told us for months and months and months, and has been reported for months and months and months. Yet yesterday it decided to be national news.